What do we mean by and what's the case for a two-state settlement in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict? On the academic and public left, the history of this conflict is actually one of competing historical narratives, which differ in their selection and emphasis of key events and players. These historical narratives offer different perspectives on the nature of this conflict at present and on its potential resolution in the future. Two highly significant dates in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict are 1948 and 1967. 1948 is known by the Palestinian Arabs as the Al-Nakba, the catastrophe. Why? Because in 1948, Israeli Jews took up their right to national self-determination. In one and the same moment, on the same land, the original occupants, Palestinian Arabs, saw their right to national self-determination vanish. What do I mean by right here? I'm coming from the tradition and perspective of consistent democracy, which recognises that, as much as I'm politically opposed to nationalism and strive for a world free of nation states, all, without exception, self-defining national groups of people have a basic democratic right to fulfilling their wish for a nation state. The tragedy of 1948 is that one nationally self-defined group of people achieved their right at the expense of another nationally self-defined group of people. In June 1967, the Israeli state came out of the Arab-Israeli Six-Day War with more territory than its UN-recognised nation-state borders of 1948. Today, that territory is the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Now, accepting the fait accompli of the nation-state of Israel on its 1948 borders, a further critical date then in this conflict is 1967. That being the moment when the Israeli state occupied Palestine, Palestine being Gaza and the West Bank. This is the historical understanding that then flows into the demand for a fully autonomous Palestinian nation-state of Gaza and the West Bank alongside the nation-state of Israel, meaning notably an end and reversal of right-wing expansionist politics and actions of the Israeli state. The Israeli Jewish settlements of the West Bank must be reversed. The control of movement and space in, out and through Gaza by the Israeli state and military must end. A consistently democratic settlement to this conflict, and by this I mean democratic for both working class people in Israel and in occupied Palestine, is that of a two nations, two states settlement. Conversely, the dominant historical narrative of the left considers 1948 as the singular paramount date in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. This is when, it is argued, the colonial occupation of Palestine began and continues, with the territory gained by the Israeli state in 1967 merely an expansion of this occupation. The demand, free Palestine, end occupation, means then the undoing in some way of the existence of the nation-state of Israel on 1948 borders. And after that, because we exist in a world in which the nation-state is the legal vehicle of political governance, some kind of one-state settlement, be that under the guise of a binational state, a confederation, or so on. What's the right political answer here for the left? Two states or various configurations of one state. Certainly the answer for the Israeli political right is one state. In the run-up to 1948, as stated by the late scholar Maxine Rodinson, the actual inhabitants of Palestine were ignored by practically everybody. The philosophy prevailing in the European world at the time was without any doubt responsible for this. Every territory situated outside that world was considered empty. Zionism, Jewish nationalism, pursued its project in this climate, and it gained reality because of the exodus of Jews from Europe escaping murderous anti-Semitism. A newly formed Israel existed in an era of decolonisation, which partly explains why Israel is uniquely singled out by much of the left. Is it a just and realistic demand 7 decades on to undo Israel? No. Is it morally bankrupt and unrealistic to demand a two nations, two states settlement on pre-1967 borders? No. Again, the late Maxine Rodinson. If the consequences of pressing a just claim are liable to be calamitous and unjust, too fraught with practical difficulties, there may be grounds for suggesting that it be renounced. The wrong done to the Arabs by the Israelis is very real. However, it is only too common throughout history. Colonists and colonisers are not monsters with human faces whose behaviour defies rational explanation, as one might think from reading left-wing intellectuals. Who is innocent of this charge? History is full of fait accomplis. There is no revolutionary solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, but there is a consistently democratic one. Two states, with the hope that the peaceful coexistence of two realised national groups of working class peoples might then transcend their national and religious identities for a cosmopolitan and egalitarian future.